Hello and welcome to another video here on Powerdojo. Today we're going to talk about cross-filtering and cross-highlighting between visuals of a Power BI report. Over here we have Power BI desktop open with the report with these three visuals as shown on screen. Before we dive in, let's have a look at the dataset. In the table view, we only have one table over here with these columns. First one is the customer segment. The fourth and fifth are sales and order date. Now, if we were to sort the order date in the ascending order, you'll see the date ranges from January 2012 to December 2015. So we're talking about a 4-year date range. Let's move back to the report view where we have created the visuals. Over here, we already have created these three visuals. I have made sure that I have different background colors for each one of them so we can differentiate between the three of them. The first one is a stacked bar chart in which we can look at the sales for each year as well as the customer segment with a different color. The second one is a column chart where we can have a look at the sales for each year. The difference between these two graphics is we do not have the segments as we had in the first visual. And the third visual is a pie chart in which we have a look at sales by year for the 4 years in question. So Power BI lets you create visuals which are interactive. Now the first interaction that we're going to have a look at is cross filtering. Now what does cross filtering does? Let's for instance click on this blue segment of 2012 in our first visual. Let's see what happens. I click on it. In the first visual you will see that my selection has been highlighted, whereas for the other two visuals it has kept only the value which corresponds to audit year 2012 and the consumer segment, which had registered 1.17 million in sales. You can see over here it has filtered the visuals down to the exact value. Now what if I were to click on, let's say, some other segment in a different year? Now it has returned values for 2014 for that particular segment, which is again 1.06 million for 2014. So you can see the numbers correspond. Now in order to deselect this, just click on the tiles somewhere else other than the columns like this, and you'll see the previous configuration of the visuals is back. And not only this, now if I were to click on, let's say, the second visual, let's see what happens in the first and third visual. This time I'll click on 2014. Now in the first visual you will see that Power BI has filtered the data keeping the consumer segments, whereas for the third it has again filtered the data keeping only 2014. Now in order to deselect this, just click somewhere else on the tile. Let's do something similar for, let's say, the third visual. If I have to click on the 2012 segment, you will see in the third visual it has highlighted only that segment, whereas it has filtered the data for us in the other two visuals where we will see the same value, which is 2.26. Over here it has rounded it to 2.3, but it still belongs to the audit date year 2012. And similarly we'll see in the first visual it has filtered the data to 2012. So we don't see the other years. So this is what filter does. We don't see the other years when we select a particular segment in other visual. So this was cross filtering. There is another interaction that we can have in between visuals, which is cross highlighting. Now how to configure cross highlighting? We will be configuring this for the first visual over here. So in order to do that, click on the visual, go to the format tab, the top over here, and click on edit interactions. Now after selecting edit interactions, what we observe on top of the second and the third visual, the filter icon has been already selected, which was the default interaction between visuals. In order to have cross highlighting, we need to select the second option, which is highlight, which we have chosen now for the second visual, and we'll do something similar for the third visual. So now if we are to click on, let's say, this segment of 2015 sales, it will highlight that particular value, that particular segment in the other visuals. So let's see how the interaction works. Now if you were to click on this segment, you will see now Power BI has highlighted the segment in the other visuals. It has kept the overall visual, but it has made sure it has highlighted now the selection that we made in our first visual. I click on the tile over here again. Now let's do something similar for the second visual. I click on the visual first, then format tab, edit interactions. I will select the second option, which is highlight, for the first visual and the third visual. Now what happens if I were to click on the second visual, one of the segments in the second visual? Power BI now has, again, it has kept the overall visual, but it has only highlighted the segment whatever we selected in the second visual. Similar for 2014, in the first visual you'll see the overall visual, but it has highlighted the 2014 visual. So you can see over here 2014 is darker than 2015, 2013 and 2012. So that's what highlight does. Now in order to deselect this, just click on the tile of the second visual. You'll see the visuals have returned to their previous configuration. Now there is a third setting which you might have noticed over here, this icon, which is none. So we saw cross filtering, cross highlighting, but what if we don't want any interactions between visuals? So in order to do that, we can click on none over here, like this and like this. Over here you can see, even though I'm not in the format tab, but we can see these options because for this particular visual, the edit interactions icon has been selected already. So it doesn't matter in which tab you are in, Power BI will let you edit those interactions if you have already selected this icon, this button for that particular visual. If I have to click on, let's say, the 2013 bar in our second visual, you see nothing has happened. The first visual has remained as it is, as well as the third. If I have to select 2014, if I select 2015, you will see the other two visuals are not interacting as per our selection in the second visual. So there are these three options that we can select. First is filter, highlight, and none. So these are the three configurations that we can have, three interactions that we can have in between visuals. In our example, we have three visuals. You maybe in your report, you might have more, let's say 4, 5, 6. So you can have different interactions for your selections. For instance, for the first one, I want filter, and the second one, I want highlight. I can do that as well. So if I were to select on 2014 this time, you'll see the first visual has been filtered, whereas the third has been highlighted. Now this is what you can do in Power BI when it comes to visuals and interactions between visuals. Now there is a default setting. Now if you remember, when we created these three visuals, the by default interaction between them was filter. So you have an option to go in parameters. First click on File, Options and Settings, and click on Manage Options. In Manage Options, you will see in the current file part of the options, you'll see Report Settings. Click on it. Over here in Visual Options, you will see that this option has been selected, where cross filtering is the default setting or the default interaction between visuals. So if you want to have cross highlighting as a default interaction between visuals, you can just deselect it like this, click on OK. Now for this file, if you were to create a new visual, the interaction that fourth visual will have with other visuals will be cross highlighting. So this is how you can have interactions between visuals and Power BI. Let me know in the comments below what you thought about this video. Don't forget to like and subscribe. I will see you in the next video.